Greetings and welcome to all of our webcast attendees around the world. I'm Doug Kennedy with Kennedy Training Network. Welcome to our June webcast, which is how to train your entire staff to solicit Muta.
You want to see it?
Just a moment. We have a little technical difficulty today. Excuse us just for one moment here. Okay, everything is good. So thank you again for joining us for training your entire staff to solicit Muta. We want to give a shout out to our sponsors without whom we would not be able to present these complimentary admission webcasts every single month. Track, a TravelNet solution. If you're a vacation rental company looking for a property management system, Track is a fabulous option. If you're a hotel or a vacation rental company looking for a CRM specific to reservation selling, check out Track Pulse. Travel Outlook, the premier hotel call center serving clients around the world, the only call center currently certified by Kennedy Training Network, and of course, Better Talent, providing staffing solutions and support for recruitment of your staff in the lodging industry. So looking through the list, which Julia and I did as we were waiting today, and we always do, we want to thank you for joining us. I first want to also mention something new. If you've been attending our webcast, and I see many familiar faces that have been with us since we started this in March of 2023, you probably already know, but a reminder, every webcast is saved on YouTube, so you can watch it, but also we now have them saved as podcasts. So if you have a long drive or a long bus ride or whatever your train ride, if you're taking that to work, remember you can listen to the audio only podcasts. A few shout outs. Wow, we have, I think, somewhere around 20 different countries. Let me first recognize our people from, I believe, the furthest away. Lucas Peng, Singapore, my friend, great to see you joining our webcast, I think for the first time. Glad to be back in touch with you. We have Johan from Novus in Stockholm, Sweden. Happy summer solstice day, even though it's one day late. I have read and heard that in Sweden, you in particular love to celebrate the summer solstice with the maypole. Benedict from Brussels, thank you for joining us. We have Diamond from the Bahia Principal in Jamaica. Yaman, glad to have you. Ernesto, Hotel El Gunso in, oh, I forgot to write down the country on you. We also have Heidi from the Fairfield Inn, Edmonton. Now, I hate to say it, but I have to say go Panthers, go Florida Panthers, because I know we're having a great series against the Edmonton Oilers on the hockey rink. So I wish you a good game, okay? May the best team win. It's been a great series so far. Jeff, General Manager of Hyatt in Jacksonville, Florida. We love to see GMs turning out for this. A lot of management companies today. We have Will from Ambiance Hospitality Group in Albuquerque. I hope everything is okay there with the recent fires and the windstorms today, dust storms today. T&B Hotels. We also have Robin from Mainsail. I believe that's the first time we've seen you. We love to see corporate directors of revenue management joining in a webcast about hospitality. Several regulars, Melissa, your team at Stay Lake Norman, and I know your company is very, very famous for hospitality, and yet here you are joining us once again on another webcast. Kathleen from Mountain Lodge Telluride. And then shout outs to some clients, Patricia at Alice Beach in the 30A region of Florida. How wonderful to see you, someone with all of your experience at some of the most iconic hotels in North America. I know you've worked there. And then my dear Liliana at Paola, who I just saw earlier this month at Nizuc Resort. You're going to be very proud because we're going to be speaking about you and your team actually towards the end of this webcast. So without further ado, let us get started. And now we begin our webcast on training your entire staff to elicit Muta, which we commonly call that warm, fuzzy feeling. So hospitality is a reciprocal exchange. There's a certain feeling that happens when we have this exchange, when it occurs. Now, if you worked in the hotel industry or the lodging industry or the vacation rental industry, and we have everybody on this webcast from all-inclusives to bed and breakfast to vacation rentals to casino hotels, anytime really outside of lodging, even when you work with the public, you know this feeling. And it happens when we have those conversations in person, across counters, restaurant tables, bars, but it also happens even on the phone when we have those heartfelt moments, and even in textual message exchanges. When you hang up the phone in that great conversation and you hang up and you go, "Oh," and you tell the person next to you, "Chris, I just talked to the nicest person. They were so sweet." Miles and miles away, kilometers away, perhaps on the other side of your continent, perhaps on a different continent, through the magic of technology, someone else is disconnecting their call and they're going, "Thank you so much." And they're going, "Oh, honey, I just talked to the nicest person." And that is the feeling that we're talking about today. Now, it is a mutually experienced feeling across cultures, nationalities, and languages. I have been very, very fortunate to train in person on site in 15 different countries around the globe, including Singapore. Lucas, I still remember meeting you there. I've trained in Malaysia, I've trained in Bulgaria, places I never dreamed of going, Brazil, Honduras. And unfortunately, I only speak one language, English, but I do recognize there's a universal gesture across the many languages I've encountered, even using translators. And across the cultures and nationalities, that gesture is this right here. Hand over our heart, because that's somewhere where we feel this feeling that I'm talking about. Now, this uniquely human experience, I don't know of any other animal that has the type of emotional connection. I know some of you are thinking, but my dog, maybe when your dog looks at you straight in the eye with that eye contact, and you're thinking at that moment, oh, you're feeling kama muta for your dog. You're thinking of your dog maybe even right now. Maybe the dog feels it. I don't know. I've never seen our dog put their paw over their heart. But aside from dogs, it is a uniquely human feeling. We commonly call this the warm fuzzies, the warm fuzzy feeling. Now, I've told this story before, maybe on a previous webcast. Those of you just joining me for the first time, I want to share. I was flying across the continent of North America. I was going to speak at a lodging conference in Reno, Nevada, and I was going to be the keynote speaker. This was last March and April, actually. And I'm preparing my presentation, putting in the final touches, and I'm getting ready to talk about the warm fuzzy feeling. And it occurred to me that there's gotta be an actual word for this. It seemed kind of weird to call it the warm fuzzies. So I actually went on Google and I said, what is the name for what is the word for the warm fuzzy feeling? And I thought maybe something will come up in different languages. I did a few searches and I found that in Western cultures, meaning Europe, North America, Asia, Europe, North America, I did not find a word in Spanish, French, English, Portuguese, German, Italian, but I did find one in the ancient Sanskrit language, which is an Asian language. And the word I found was right here. Can anyone read that? If you are, I'm impressed. In Sanskrit, I don't know what that says, but it is loosely translated as the word kama muta. Kama muta. And this is translated as being moved by love. Now, I always like to say lowercase l love. We're not talking about the romantic love that you have for your husband, wife, your domestic partner, your significant other. We're not talking about the love you have for your children or your parents or your dog, but lowercase l love that we have for humanity. So that's what we're talking about. Now, how do we train people and train ourselves to create this feeling with those that we call our guests? Clearly, some people are born with hospitality personalities. Now, I love speaking of my mentor, where I learned the art of hospitality. It was in my very first job, if you can read this, the Kennedy Craft Supply Store, where I worked from age 9 to 20 for this amazing woman here, whose name was Barbara Kennedy, also known as Mom. And I worked for Mom for 11 years. And my mom was an amazing people person. I often say when people came to Kennedy Crafts, it had very little to do with the crafts. It was about the connection she had with them. This was a picture of our very first store at the back of the shopping center at the end of a long hallway, because that's where the cheap rent was. It was an L-shaped shopping center, and you had to go through 2 doors and walk down an arcade. At the very end of that arcade, and the cheapest rent was the first Kennedy Craft shop. And when Mom opened that store, I started working Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And I watched my mom grow that business from the back of the store, moving closer to the front of the shopping center, taking over the space to the right, and then she took over the space to the left. Then she opened 2 more locations. And because of my mom's success as a small businesswoman, I got to be the first of my family to go to college. In fact, you see a picture of my mom and I here on the day of my college graduation. My mom knew that what makes business stand out, and this was in the 70s, it was the people skills. She called it being a people person. It had very little to do with crafts and a lot to do with people. And probably about 3 or 4 years into the establishment of Kennedy Craft Shop, the craft business got disrupted. You know the term disruption, right? Like Uber disrupted taxis and Airbnb has disrupted lodging. Well, we got disrupted by a new company called Kmart. Kmart burst onto the scene and sold craft supplies in the craft aisle. That was even before Walmart, at least in Kentucky where I grew up. And their supplies were about 20% less than us. So what we would charge $1 for, you could buy for 80 cents in 1970s dollars. But Kennedy Craft continued to grow because it wasn't about crafts. It was about the feeling of staying there. And that's what differentiated our brand. It reminds me of the famous quote from the poet laureate Maya Angelou. And I hope I get this right. Some of you may be more knowledgeable in this area, but loosely for paraphrase, no one will remember what it was you said, but no one will ever forget how it was you made them feel. When you walked into Kennedy Crafts, we created Kama Muta and that connection, okay? Now, Mom always called it being a people person, and in fact, that's what got me, I think, every job that I ever had. Oh, I'm a people person. I just love working with people, right? Some of you might have even said that in your first interview. But today, it is called emotional intelligence. So you thought you were just a people person, but now you can say, I am actually emotionally intelligent. Thank Mr. Daniel Goleman here. Daniel Goleman, well, there are a few other people that have been in this space, but he wrote this book over 25 years ago. Actually, he wrote several books, but this was my favorite. Emotional Intelligence is Daniel Goleman, like G-O-L-E, not Goldman. And it really talks about how the physiological part of emotional intelligence, that we have brains that are actually hardwired to have EQ, emotional quotient. Whereas some people don't have these skills. Some people just don't have, they're not born with that. People that are extremely missing this genetic makeup, well, they make really good judges, really good emergency room physicians that deal with trauma surgeons, and also sometimes they make serial killers, okay? But those of us who are, some people are born with this. Now, I get this question a lot, usually when I'm having dinner with clients while I'm on site. I go out every month, I train about 6 different lodging companies, hotels, vacation rentals, resorts. And a lot of times at dinner, they set me up this with the question, Doug, don't you think you have to be born with those people skills? And a lot of people say, you know, because I believe you can't train those people skills. You either have them or they don't. And then this is why they've developed all these pre-employment testing to supposedly flush out those who have those hospitality personalities. I'm always a little skeptical of some of those pre-employment tests because when I talk to people or when I did them years ago, I remember used the first one in 1987 when I was the director of front office at the Mayfair House. And people actually, I think, try to guess what answer you're looking for. But maybe there is some validity. But when I talk to people in today's world, even with the newer, more advanced tests, they're saying, yeah, I hired this new person. They looked great on paper. They look like they're sitting in the right seat on the bus, okay, to talk about the ROCKS program. And then you get there and they just don't seem to have it. So good luck trying to hire it. And maybe you can find some of those people who are highly, highly emotionally intelligent. But I believe solidly that you can train people skills. Okay, now let's be real. Whoops, we're locked up again here. Let us be real. You may not actually be able to. You may not be able to hardwire someone's personalities if you have an extremely unempathetic person that may in fact be more of the criminal mindset without empathy. But most of us, what we can do is nurture the seeds of heartfelt hospitality that exist in almost everyone, including yourself. Maybe it's because I've spent 35 years conducting training classes as recently as 2 days ago when I was at the Conrad Punta de Mita in Mexico teaching hospitality. And I do believe that you can impact people. One of the best things that has happened to me in a long time is a young lady named Sheila, who was working at the front desk for my previous 2 visits to Conrad Punta de Mita in 2022 and 2023. And when I was there this week, she messaged me on LinkedIn and she said, oh, I heard from my former colleagues you're in town. I don't even work at Conrad anymore, but I manage the golf course next door. I would love to see you and show you our golf course. So Sheila shows up at the end of her workday, the end of my workday, took me on a tour of her beautiful golf course facing the Baja Peninsula. And she said, thank you so much for your hospitality training, because it really made me understand that what I truly love is hospitality. So that's where I feel my job is worthwhile, helping people nourish and water this sense that maybe is innate, maybe it's a seed, we water, we grow, we fertilize it, and we can create this in others. Now, when we do this, when we nurture those seeds in our staff, or some of you are frontline staff attending today, and you have to nurture the seeds in yourself, this is good for business because the guests are going to do the 2 things we want every guest to do, and every customer and every business. We want them to come back next time, repeat business. And we want them to tell others good things about us. We used to call this word of mouth. Now I call it word of click, like clicking on a keyboard, doing an online review, or word of tap, tap, tap on the glass with doing reviews if people are typing on their phone. So those are the 2 things we want every guest to do. If we to elicit Muta in the feeling and the heartfelt feeling in our guests, they're going to come back. But let me tell you something else, ladies and gentlemen, for all of us, whether you're a leader or a frontline person, it's also good for you, because unless you win the lottery, you're always going to need a job, okay? And good luck with that. It's actually 1 in 330 million in the United States to hit that Powerball, okay? And I'm pretty sure many, if not most of the countries represented in our webcast today, you have the lottery too, the government-sponsored lottery, a nice way to get a little extra tax dollars out of this, because in the end, they win. So unless you win that lottery, maybe play 1 ticket a week or 1 a month, you're always going to need a job. Why not make the best out of it? This is a quote I love to share from my very first front office manager, Craig Johnson. He used to love to say this to us when we'd be complaining about new procedures, new things coming down from the Marriott corporate office in the early 80s when they only had 125 hotels. And he would say, guys, you got to be here 40 hours a week anyway. Why not make the best of it? That thought still resonates with me today. So how do we get started? How do we as leaders get our team thinking about hospitality, creating Kama Muta? How do we nurture those seeds in ourselves? Okay, and the first thing that we do is we get everyone thinking about what guests are experiencing on the other side of the doors, the other side of the phone conversations, the other side of the bar, the other side of the host stand, the other side of the email exchange. And that, I feel, looking back on my career in 35 years of presenting hospitality training, is one area that I have been able to succeed, which is to give meaning to the work. Because if all our staff thinks they're going to be doing is coming into work, processing check-ins, working through phone calls, working through the huge flood of email exchanges, the guests become anonymous. They become a meaningless, faceless guest. In fact, many times we refer to them as room 3102 needs more tiles, room 2119 wants a late checkout, table 3 wants another bottle of wine. But remember to rehumanize your guest and have them every day. Think about the stories that are living out on the other side. So I'm going to get you thinking a little bit about that today in our brief time together. Think about business travelers. I remember when I started at the Lexington Marriott Resort at Griffin Gate, where I grew up. I've lived in Miami areas most of my adult life, but you know, here I am at the first rung of middle class. I mean, my mom was a shopkeeper, and if we ever stayed at a hotel, it was pretty rare. Usually we stayed at campgrounds. One day I find myself working at a 4-star, 4-diamond resort, the Griffin Gate Marriott, and guests would come in. We had a lot of business travelers, especially during weekdays. On weekends, it would be more leisure. And I thought, oh my gosh, this place is beautiful. I would love to stay here. Right? And I was thinking what it would be like if I would walk through those doors, because I had no idea of what it was like to be a business traveler. My first job briefly was banquets, but then I went to driving the airport courtesy van, and then I went to Dorman Bellman. And so I would literally be the one that would pick them up. It was about 15 minutes to the airport, and I would pick them up, and I would be all excited. Hey, welcome to the Marriott. And I'd, you know, try to have a conversation. A lot of people at first didn't want to talk. A lot of people didn't seem happy. And I was thinking, what is wrong with these guests? They should be, I would love to stay here. And then I started living out my life on the other side of that front desk. When I started my company in 1989, in my 20s, suddenly I realized there's a lot of downside to being a business traveler. I figured recently I spent 14 of the last 35 years alone, traveling on an airplane, in a rental car, alone in a hotel room. Now, fortunately for me, during the day, I'm presenting hospitality classes, which is very rewarding. But on the outbound trip, even today, sometimes it's a lonely world until I hit the workshop, have my peeps around me. A lot of people, though, are not there to present training. They're there for other reasons. And I want you to always think, get your staff thinking about that. If you work at a city center hotel, or a corporate hotel, I guess hotel serving the corporate clientele, like many of you on this webcast today. So always get your team thinking about what are the experiences, long days spent in meetings. And in today's world, we're spending most of the evenings working email. It used to be, you know, my classes would end at 5 o'clock. Maybe I'd check voicemail, return a few phone calls. Then in the 90s, maybe I'd have a fax or two being delivered to my room. Or maybe I'd have to go send a few faxes. But today, people spend hours and hours cleaning up email, or they have stressful tasks to complete while they're out there on the road. Think about the reasons people travel on business to your hotel. It could be to hire staff, but it could also be to terminate. It could be because the local office is having a problem, revenues have fallen short, or there's been a corporate change that they have to announce, or the company is experiencing a lawsuit. So it's not all fun and games on the road. And many of us miss family members, we miss loved ones, we miss our dogs and our cats. But think about all of the other reasons guests are traveling today as well, not just business or leisure, but many people are staying for hospital stays, funerals, recently separated from their marriage partner or their domestic partner. In fact, sometimes I have had many times where my staff has told me they have hosted people hiding from domestic abuse and they want to register under an anonymous name. Military farewells if you live anywhere near a base, or people coming to visit loved ones who are in the military. Memorial services. Over 50% of people in the United States today choose cremation. I'm not sure what the numbers are worldwide. It might be even higher. So they have memorial service, celebration of life. So hospital stays. Next week, I'm going to be presenting at the New York Presbyterian Hospital guest facility, which is their hotel connected to not only New York Presbyterian, but also Mount Sinai Medical Center and 2 other hotels. And this hotel serves 4 hospitals. Every guest in the hotel is there for cancer treatment, major surgery. This is not getting your appendix out. These are major surgeries by some of the most talented physicians and specialists, or they're there because their loved one is experiencing someone, which has got to be even harder, at least for me. I would rather be having the surgery myself than to have a loved one go through that. We would stand in for our own children or spouse, most of us. So every single day at this hotel, their guests on the other side are dealing with the traumatic treatment or a surgical procedure. Can you imagine? That's why every time I go there, this will be my 3rd year going there, I feel like I learn as much about hospitality as I'm able to share for them. So to increase our ability to give hospitality and that sense of kama muta, be present with your guests. Think about it. And when you have a guest that's there for a hospital stay or a funeral, and you say, so what brings you to the hotel? And they say, I'm here for surgery or a funeral. Just be quiet for 3 or 4 seconds and be present. And you actually will feel that exchange happening right then. And then you just say, well, my thoughts will be with you for a positive outcome. Or if you choose to say so, my thoughts and prayers will be with you. I hope you have happy memories of your loved ones if they're there for a funeral. So now let's talk about vacations. We have our leisure guests, which seems all fantastic, right? They're celebrating their annual vacation. They're celebrating their weddings and honeymoons. They're celebrating their anniversaries, milestone birthdays, any birthday ending with a 0 or a 5, family events, gender reveal parties, baby moon parties are very popular, especially at resorts, romantic getaways with our special significant other one's first trip with the new baby, first trip without the baby, okay? Last trip before our daughter goes off to college, graduation. At this time of year, it's graduation. Next spring, it'll be college tours, all these different reasons why people travel on leisure. But I want you to think about also the higher the expectation, sometimes the harder it is to meet that dream world. But remember, in the resort sector especially, you actually work in a memory factory. Every single day, you help your guests manufacture memories of a lifetime. And all of these reasons here are milestone events, some of the most important events that people have in their entire life. These days are being celebrated by travel. You know, it's part of what you may have heard this, experiences, not things. And the world is shifting now, and today's people increasingly realize, do we really need another diamond earrings or another expensive watch? Or should we take the family, all the extended family, on a vacation together and get a rental house or book a small block of rooms and be together? Actually manufacture memories every day. And so think about the memories that are playing out and think about how quickly time passes. We have how many people? Let's see, it's June, at least in North America. I think most everyone on the call is North America except for Singapore. And you have people right now enjoying summer vacation, their first trip with the baby. Or maybe they come back the next time and they have 2 children and they're getting a little older, but they're going to make those sand castles, or they're going to bury their child in the neck, in sand up to their neck. How many of you have pictures like that on the walls of your house or your grandparents' house? These are pictures people will actually send to CVS or Walmart, Walgreens, and print and buy a frame, okay? Or at least buy a digital frame on Amazon. And then next thing you know, that little girl here is now a teenager. And then you realize your parents are getting a little bit older. You can't see the parents, they're cut off here in this photo. But you have mom and dad and the kids, or maybe mom and the kids, or maybe dad and the kids, but also grandma and grandpa, and you all have that vacation together. And then one day, it is just the 2 of you with those memories going back all of those years. Ladies and gentlemen, I've lived every picture in this frame, and I know how quickly life goes. You probably hear this. I had a conversation with my Lyft driver, like Uber and Lyft, last night, coming back from the Miami airport. He has a 2-year-old child. He's the same age I was when I had my children, which was my late 30s. We talked about, yeah, life really goes quick when you have a child. I said, well, you know why that is, right? Because every year, the years go by faster because our reference of time shrinks. When you're 5 years old, 1 year is 20% of your life. When you're 10 years old, 1 year is 10% of your life. When you're 20 years old, 1 year is only 5% of your life. So your frame of reference for how long a year is shrinks. And that's why when you talk to people getting on in their years, okay, I'm one of them, they will tell you it goes quick. Be in the moment. That's what your guests are trying to do every single day in the leisure business. But the challenge that we have sometimes, these lofty expectations, I can't wait for vacation, right? And then by the time they arrive to your accommodation or to your lobby area, this is who walks on. Sometimes those lofty expectations don't turn out as planned. And when I'm doing the training on site with my clients, I try to get people to think about all of the things that guests go through. First of all, the lofty expectations. For this 1 week, we're going to get to spend together as a family or as a couple or with your girls trip or your guys getaway even, or that you're going to take your mom and your sisters. And sometimes things don't turn out as planned. So that's why to create that kama muta, we have to really work to put out that vibe so we can make it our job to bring out the best in others. And when you do that, you're going to bring out the best in yourselves because you've got to be here anyway. Why not? You'll have a lot more fun. And so I encourage you, if you want to train your staff to elicit kama muta, get them thinking about the guest, think about these guest expectations, but then also think about what guests go through on the way. My new article, which we'll be publishing next month, I'm working on now. I'm going to attempt to debunk the theory that guests are getting more difficult. I don't ever remember when dealing with the public was easy. I've been working since I was 9. We had rude customers in Mom's Craft Shop. We had rude guests at the Marriott Griffin Gate in Lexington. I worked in Connecticut, New York City. I worked in Miami. That was interesting in the cocaine cowboy era. I remember having people with bodyguards that were probably drug dealers. Believe me, they weren't easy. We have always had difficult guests. What changes today is our perception. And you come to work thinking you're going to encounter more difficult guests, you will. What happens is when we look back on the past, we always, it's a human nature, we tend to rewrite the history and we remember only the good things. So understand that it's always been this way. The challenge we have today is people have a lot of pressure and on themselves, and they have so many ways to be in touch, it's really hard to unplug. So as I always say in my trainings, most guests, now most, because there are some difficult ones, and we're going to finish our webcast by talking about them in a moment. Most guests don't start out their day with the intention to complain and to be difficult. But what happens is all the challenges along the way, by the time they walk in, those challenges can bring out the worst side of even the nicest personalities. So if you want to train your staff to elicit Kama Muta, if you yourself want to evolve your spirit of hospitality, take time every day to imagine what those guests are going through prior to their arrival. First of all, the stress of packing and preparing to travel. Imagine that guest that's flying for even a 9 a.m. departure. Well, you're supposed to be at the airport 2 hours early, okay? And even 1 hour early puts you at 8 o'clock. You have to get to the airport and fight traffic, or even if there's no traffic, you better allow for traffic before you go to the airport, because if there's a little tiny accident or it's raining, you know, so they're waking up super early. What time did they go to bed the night before? Okay, waking up early, traffic delays, flight delays. It seems to me when I am running late for the flight, that's the flight that's going to be late. If I want to make sure my flight is going to be late, just make sure that I'm late. Annoying fellow passengers, okay, that's been a big issue. Quarreling children if you're driving in the back seat of the car. Are we there yet? He's touching me, he's on my side. So by the time they get to us, we know they're probably tired and they're probably hungry. And when those guests show up in our lobby, we have two choices at this very moment. We can treat others the way others are treating you, or we can treat others the way you would want to be treated. Who was raised right? If you're sitting with the group right now watching Doug Kennedy's webcast, raise your hand if you were raised right. If you were raised right, what did they teach you at home? Did they say treat others the way others treat you, son, daughter? Or did they say treat others the way you would want to be treated? In Christianity, this is called the golden rule. Thou shalt do unto others as you shall have others do unto you. This is actually a principle of every language, of every religion around the world. When we bring out the best in other guest personalities, we have a lot more fun at work and we meet more nice people, okay? So as we talked about in other webcasts, make it your job to flip their vibe. Vibes are a real thing. And it has been proven now, we literally put out a 3 feet out, a vibe that actually interacts with the vibe of others. Check out HeartMath. I'm going to recover this again. I know I've mentioned it previously in a few other webcasts, but HeartMath actually found that the heart has the biggest electromagnetic field in the body. What they did is they put sensors, brain scanners on 2 individuals to measure their brain activity. And as you know, if you've ever watched on YouTube or TV channels, when different parts of the body are stimulated, they can actually measure our reaction in different areas of our brain. So if they touch you or pinch you or slap you or make you angry, they can actually, or scare you, you can see the brain reacting when there's no verbal conversation. So they use brain scanners to actually watch how the physical interaction of 2 human beings affects our own brain waves. And when I see this research, I kind of think, duh. If you've ever been around people, you know people who have the good vibe that lifts us up, and we have those people who literally suck the energy out of the room. So make it our day, every day, to bring out the best in others. It brings out the best in ourselves. To recap from some of our other previous trainings, convey enthusiasm. Always acknowledge people as they approach you. Greet others before they greet you. This shows confidence, and that helps make them feel special. So whether you see them approaching your front desk, whether you see them walking down the corridors, or even if you pass them anywhere on properties, greet them first. Be fully present. Your body language will show. Do more question asking than talking. Make the conversation all about you. I was recently presenting an on-site training, and someone said, Doug, that's all good. You know, we were talking about greeting the guest in person and saying, so tell me, how were your travels today? And they said, well, you know, we don't always have time for that because we have a lot of guests checking in. I said, okay, let's try this. So I pulled out my timer on my phone and I said, okay, let's just do a regular greeting. Good afternoon, welcome to the hotel. How are you? May I have your last name, please? Okay, stop. And then I said, let's try it again. Good afternoon, how are you today? How were your travels? Oh, really? And we timed what a conversation might be. The difference was 30 seconds. And everybody in line watching you sees that you're taking your time to be fully present. That vibe transmits all the way down the line to those who are waiting, because they can see when it's their turn, they're going to get your full undivided attention. Same is true with those of you who work in phone calls. It doesn't take a lot of time to make those human connections. Eye contact, it's been said that eyes are the windows to the soul. Eye contact creates that uniquely human connection. Hold that eye contact a little bit longer. And when you hold the eye contact, you get to about somewhere between 2 and 3 seconds, and then a smile breaks out if we hold that eye contact long enough. Smile at everyone you encounter, including your coworkers, by the way, because that's where hospitality starts. Smiling has a physiological benefit. You actually trick your brain into happiness. All of these things help us raise our own vibe, so we share that vibe with others. The vibe of Kama Muta, being moved by love, lowercase l love. It is a flow of energy. So now, oh, let us not forget telephone hospitality, because many of you are saying, Doug, I'm actually on the phone. I don't see anyone to smile at. They hear a smile in your voice. Have you ever talked to someone you can actually imagine them? You're seeing a smile. And you can hear when people aren't smiling and they're going through the motions. We call this tonality. So be enthusiastic. Once again, think about them. Why are they calling? They're planning a really important trip, or they have a really important question about their meeting that they're attending. Speak slowly and articulate. If we talk really, really fast, we make people feel rushed and inconsequential, insignificant. Take your time to be fully present and to make those connections. And use inflection. It's almost a little like singing, because if we just sing in one tone, it wouldn't be a very interesting song. So vary your pitch a little. Now, obviously, I'm overemphasizing this, but inflection, energy, enthusiasm, and articulating. That means don't be lazy with your words. Do not run them all together. We run all our words together and people only know what we're saying. Do not run your words together. Articulate. You will sound well spoken. Now, it is entirely possible to use guest service skills, but delivering them with a heartfelt hospitality makes all the difference. We train a lot of luxury hotels and luxury vacation rental companies, such as Thank You Stay Lake Norman for joining us today. And what really makes the difference is those that put heart into it. A lot has been said recently about, you know, this unreasonable hospitality and doing an extra task or a thing. And that's good if you're empowered to send an amenity to the room or to do something extra, or order flowers for an anniversary, or send a bottle of wine. But the most important thing is ordinary hospitality, excellence daily, and the people skills that they actually feel. And so now I speak to you about the Nizuk Resort, truly, if not the most, then definitely one of the most top 5 most beautiful hotels that I've ever been in. These are actual pictures from the Nizuk Resort and Spa. It's about only 10 minutes from the Cancun airport. And I've been there, going there since 2017. When I went there the very first time, I was amazed by the architect. Let me show you a few pictures that I took 3 weeks ago when I was there. This is actually the view from the rooms. This is actually pictures I took of the lobby. Everyone, in fact, there's a lady here taking the same photo. I had to wait to get my chance to take a picture because everybody was making this photograph. When you enter the resort, this is what you see straight ahead. And this is when you look to the left. They have these beautiful fire bowls. The rooms themselves are immaculate, comfortable. They're so perfect. The bathtub, look at the soaking tubs, double vanity mirrors. But the best part about them are the people. And this is actually Estefania, the sales administrative assistant, and Wendy, the training manager, and a photo of me that we took. They have just achieved their Forbes 5-star award this year, which everybody knows how hard that is. But I'm going to speak to you about this gentleman here. His name is Edgar. He's the bell captain. When I was there a few years ago, actually 2 years ago, exactly this month, Edgar taught me a new word. And the word Edgar taught me was senti passante. And the reason Edgar taught me this term, we were talking about how many luxury hotels are really, really good at hitting all those talking points that rating services like Ford's AAA, or in the restaurant business, the Michelin star rating emphasizes these scripted service points. But we were discussing in the class that you have to take the journey from the head to the heart, to not just know the script to say, but to say it with meaning and to say it with hospitality. And so when you do that, you unify the journey from head to the heart, and that's how you create Muta. Well, he taught me a new word. He said at the break, he said senti passante. It is a term that describes people who integrate their emotion with their intellect in a unified way. They have learned to rely on empathy as well as intelligence. And so that is really how we make that connection. Now, as we round the clock here to finalize our time today, I do want to talk about the power of release over negativity, because I know sometimes hospitality is not received. So remember, do not give your remote control to the guests. Do not let them change your emotion. Own your power, okay? I'm gonna share with you a lesson that I got taught by a wise man named Grant. Now, I have not had alcohol in over 10 years. I stopped drinking in January of 2014 because I did like it a little bit too much. But in my drinking years, I did have some great conversations with some really fantastic bartenders. And I remember well when I met this gentleman, Grant, I was actually at the Sandals Resort in Montego Bay. And I believe what had happened, I had a BlackBerry at the time, and BlackBerry phone device, and I had received a stressful message while I was at the beach checking in on my emails. And Grant said to me these words. He said, "Mr. Douglas, man, never let them rob you of your joy." He said, because if you don't let them make you mad, then you win. And I remember that. There's a lot of conversations with bartenders I don't remember, but this is one I shall never forget. And so remember, own your power. Nobody can make you angry unless you give them the power. So avoid ruminating and guest bashing, because what happens is when we have that difficult guest and we hang up and you say, "Chris, you cannot believe this guy I just spoke with," or if you're at a desk and you go back, "Chris, oh my gosh, this guest, you can't believe." It's okay to vent, but one person. You can vent to them and they can vent to you. But do not vent to Chris and then Sandy and then to Thomas and then to Jane, because the more times you retell this, the more you relive it. And remember, it's okay to vent, but it's not okay for guest bashing and disrespecting guests, because both cynicism and optimism spread as fast as the coronavirus. So today, I hope to have reminded you that when we bring out the best in others, we bring out the best in ourselves. This is good for business, but it's also good for you. And I'm going to leave you with a homework assignment today. Hospitality has a diametric meaning. It means both guest and host. When a word has a diametric meaning, it means the opposites. So hospitality means guest, but it also means host. And what that means to me is hospitality is a mutual shared feeling between the giver and the receiver. It is a reciprocal exchange. As we discussed here at the beginning of this webcast today, Kama Muta, when you give it, it is received and you're both having that shared feeling. So I want you to remember that sharing your hospitality vibe is like shining a flashlight into a mirror. The more when you do that, the illumination grows brighter and the light reflects back on you. So for your homework assignment, if you live with anyone, chances are you do. If you live alone, shine the flashlight in the mirror. If you live with someone, kiss them goodnight. Night, honey, I love you. Turn the lights off, take a flashlight, shine it in the mirror, and you will see what happens. They'll be wondering, what are you doing? Just say, oh, homework for Doug Kennedy. I went to his webcast today. When you shine that light, actually a light of your cell phone more likely, you will see the light reflecting back on you, and that light gets brighter. And so I hope you've enjoyed our time today on the concept of Kama Muta, how to train your staff and how to train yourself. Remember to join us. We have upcoming next a sales and marketing topic. Actually, this is a customer service topic, how to make every guest interaction into a marketing and public relations. Then we have a hotel and event sales, and we come back to talk about reservations for our September. So thank you again to our sponsors. Please join us on our podcast and webcast for the reviews. And if anyone is interested in on-site training, our webcams, our mystery shopping and call scoring, please reach out to us directly. Thank you so much, everyone, and we appreciate you joining us on the latest KTN webcast.